This is Brother Carter with Tasteful and Toxic. I also have my lovely wife with me,
Val.
Hey, Val. Be sure and tune in to us every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m.
Don't sleep on us, baby. Get up, get your coffee. Tune in.
We love you. God bless you. We'll see you Wednesday. Good morning, and welcome to the second edition of Forgiveness on Tasteful and Toxic. This is your main man, Brother Carter, Mr. C, or LC. That's me. And also we have on the show is my lovely wife, Miss Val.
Hey, how y'all doing?
We have Tahlar Rowe. Taylor Rowe. I don't know why that's my niece named Tyler. That's why she keeps thinking in my head. Tahlar Rowe. Tahlar Rowe is on the show, and we also have my main man, Brother JBL, all the way from Gainesville, Florida, on the show. So God bless y'all. Do me a favor and read number 1 for me. And let me see if we can understand. This is Google version of what forgiveness is. Number 1 right there.
Yes.
At the top.
It says, what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is a psychological sense and is the intentional and voluntary process with which one may have felt intentionally wrong, victimized, harmed, or hurt, goes through a process in changing feelings.
And so, and you understanding that to be what?
So I like to break things down.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
That's why I passed it to you.
Right. So when it says it's a psychological sense, that lets me know that it's in your mind, but that I think also it's in your heart. Mm-hmm. And it says it's intentional and voluntary, which means sometimes when it's intentional, that may be when someone asks for your forgiveness. Mm. Voluntary may be what you were saying. If someone doesn't ask, we still are called to extend it. So that's what that kind of means. And then it just says in which somebody feels wrong, victimized, harmed, or hurt, or goes through a process. I think it is a process, kind of like I was saying with my example. There have been people in my family, in my life, where it has been a process. It is not an overnight thing. And sometimes there's a lot of anxiety that may come with it, because even though you forgive them, sometimes in the back of your mind, you be like, man, they're going to do it again. How do I react then? You know, or there's been times where I've forgiven people and we're copacetic, it's fine. And then they go to do the same thing. And I'm like, and then everything comes back up.
It's like what Abigail was saying. You know your child was wronged, touched by Uncle JoJo, and then you see Uncle JoJo disappear, and your child gone. And where's
they may not be in the same area.
Forgive, but that level of trust, and so and even if you try to rebuild the trust, it's hard, because if people do it again, you have to forgive them again. But the Bible tells you, if you forgive them like 70 times 70, as much as you ask God to forgive you, you forgive. And one thing that I wanted to kind of say
and it has to be different levels. No, I want you to continue, but it has to be different levels, even according to the Bible. You know, it's got to be different levels to forgiveness, because some and I know God is just to forgive us all for any sins that we.
But we aren't God.
Exactly.
And the levels come in. And JB, please jump in. I think the levels comes in as your maturity in it. I think that everybody is at different levels of it, but it does not even. And I've always said this, and even before I really understood what the forgiveness thing was all about, God has not created us where our mind is just going to turn off from experiences, because situations, because he really, really wants us. And I think it's just not going to turn off. It's not that he wants us to forget, but that's like touching the hot stove. You want a kid or someone that have went and did something or went to the hot stove. You want him to understand that stove is hot. And so if you get back on that thing, you're going to burn yourself. So I think that that's still there, kind of going. So, you know, there's a caution level. When I deal with this person, I have forgiven them, but I still am going to move in caution, because they're human. They can go back, and I'm not going to allow you to hurt me like that.
Yeah, you're supposed to be like that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. One thing that I've so when it comes to me, it's easy to forgive. Like, you cuss me out, you can whatever. I'm just gonna be like, God bless you, whatever. I genuinely have gotten to a place where I have so much peace where I'm like, it is what it is. But people I care about, I'm like a lion. And so something that I am still working on is people I love. When there are people who wrong them, I struggle with forgiving that person that wronged the person I love. So I choose to forgive the situation.
That's a whole nother level of forgiveness.
And not the person. So a great example, and I'm gonna make it real quick. I have an 85-year-old godmother. She's the cutest little white lady that you'll see. I'm named after her. My middle name is named after her, and she's sweet as a button. Quick story. One day she went to Kroger, older, she's shopping. A lady walks up asking her for a cake recipe. And her 15-year-old son steals my godmother's purse and runs out the door. To this day, that boils
Wait a minute. Soul. Come back to that.
Yeah.
The lady
It was a setup.
It was a setup. So, you see an older, sweet white lady shopping in Kroger's. You go ask her about a cake recipe and she's going to talk to you. Yeah. And at the same time, her 15-year-old son stole
seeing her
purse.
Distracted by having a conversation over here.
And so that to this day, I'm like, if I ever come across that
I don't even know that lady and I'm mad.
Right. Yeah. It's on site. But what gets me through situations like that is I'm like, you know what? I'm mad. But thank God she was safe. Thank God that, even though they took her pictures and she's so sad. Like, I lost all, old people carry their pictures. Like, I lost all my pictures. I lost all my stuff, the keys to my house, but they didn't go to her house and break into her house. They didn't even take her car, so I choose to, it's hard for me sometimes to forgive the people who have the malintentions, but I at least say, well, thank God my friend was safe through that abusive relationship. Or thank God they came through and they're okay, even if I'm struggling to forgive the perpetrator, if that makes sense.
That's good.
And it sounds like your approach to forgiveness is gratitude, because you were even saying that earlier, like you used to say, like, God forgive me, but now you say thank you for leading me down this, or however you know what I'm saying? It sounds like you, like, if it's harder for you to forgive, maybe if you approach it from a place of gratitude, looking at it from the bright side or things like that.
I try to do that. Yeah,
I like that.
That's good. That's good. So, time has been well spent on this subject called forgiveness. And I don't think we even put a dent in what forgiveness truly is and what it really means. So in closing, I want to see if we can maybe speak on 3 things that we can do in the process of working through this thing called forgiveness.
Wow. Let's start with JB.
JB. Let's start with JB.
You got it.
All right.
The first thing is jotted down here.
Okay.
But I want to hear from y'all's perspective before I give the perspective of what I have jotted down here.
All right. I've been thinking about major family stuff that I've had to deal with in my life and try to find forgiveness for people. And the situation that comes to mind was with my mom. My mom had a lot of challenges in her life. She was a very emotionally disturbed person, but one of the things that she did to me repeatedly was her form of punishment for me was making me pull the big trash can in from outside and sit in that until my dad got home to give me a spanking, right? So I spent a lot of time in the trash dumpster because of my mom. And that obviously had a lot of impacts on my sense of self-value and all that. So as an adult, once I started going through therapy and trying to come to terms with all this stuff, I had to find my way to forgive her for that, so that I'm not carrying that burden of resentment around. But I still have to figure out how I'm going to manage that relationship with my mom, right? Because my mom still wants to be a part of my life. She hasn't changed who she is.
And never apologize for what she's done.
Right. Like there's nothing that she can do to change the way that I feel, et cetera. Right.
Even within.
But so my challenge in getting through that situation as a mature, responsible adult that's trying to be the best person that I can be is finding the boundaries that I'm going to create around myself and my relationship with my mom moving forward. And for a long time, it was zero contact. I cut my mom out of my life. I didn't talk to her for probably 10 years. And then when I was able to get to the next level, I was willing to have surface conversations with my mom on the phone, but I don't let it go an inch below the surface. Like that's my box, is that we can say, hi, how are you? How's the family? How's the animals, etc. And that's it. I'm not willing to allow her any more access to my emotions than that. And that's as far as we got, because she died in 2020 from COVID. But I don't know that it ever would have gotten any farther than that. And maybe it would have. It's impossible to say. But I think for me, I had to find my way through that, looking for ways of how can I be at peace with myself and what happened, and is my mom going to be a part of that, or is she not? And if she's, whatever the answer is, it's going to be okay. My mom might not like the fact that I cut her out of my life, but that's what I needed to do for me at that time.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think the critical thing was for me was finding that inner peace. What is the recipe for me to be okay with what has happened so that I can move forward?
That's good, JB.
That's
good.
Wow.
And so, JB, I know your mother has passed on at this point, but have you reached a level of forgiveness for her at this point, or understanding why she did what she done or whatever?
I have a very good understanding of the overall picture. I know that my mom was filled with her own childhood trauma that she never dealt with. Like she, and this is where I think the danger of holding on to one tool is. My mom tried to get God's attention in every way that she could, waiting for God to put the magic wand on her forehead and cure her pains and her aches and her hurts. And she refused to accept any of the practical tools that were available to her, provided by God, right? My mom's the person that would sit on the roof of the house in the flood and drown, unwilling to get in all the boats and helicopters that came to rescue her, because she's waiting for God, and she couldn't recognize that God was there. So I understand that my mom had all of those traumas in her head. She had a horrible self-value, and that she never was able to pick up any of the tools around her. So I forgive her for that. That's who she was. That was all that she had the capacity to do. And that's, a lot of people are in that same position. A lot of people will never, ever recognize that there are tools around them and how to use them. And I can't take responsibility for that. I just have to accept that that's what it is.
JB,
I love what you
helping
just said.
somebody with that.
I'm sorry. I know, but I can't.
You're gonna remember.
Okay, but I won't.
Okay.
Let me say this to JB. You said something. You said two things that were so powerful. You recognize you did what you had to do for you, for your own self, healthy space so that you can live. But you also recognize that that was her capacity. And so you still didn't allow, you loved her, you forgave her, but you didn't allow her capacity to define who you were going to be moving forward. You dealt with it in your own way, your own healthy way. I love that. And you didn't allow other people to tell you how to deal with that. You gave yourself enough grace and enough love that you had to figure out a way that was best for you. And I'm sure your therapist helped you with that. And I love that.
And JB.
Oh, wow. Wouldn't you?
That's
JB, your book, The Righteous Rage of a 12-year-old explains it all right there. 10-year-old, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It explains it all right there. You had a righteous rage. And many people, there's a lot of people out there that have a righteous rage inside of them because of some abuse and stuff that took place in their lives, right? So, man, I commend you for being strong enough and vulnerable enough to be able to express those things out there. Because you actually hit on part A of my my jot down here. Acknowledge the pain.
Right.
Work through the pain. Working through the pain my reading.
It's okay. Your reading
only happens once you admit you've been hurt. And so you got through the first part of the process of beginning to heal and the beginning of forgiveness for that. So I commend you for that. And I know
Tahlar
Rowe is finna come up with part B or C of that.
I don't know why he want to call you something. And I'm the one that he normally want to act like. See how he tried to put me on blast like I didn't know
her name is so simple and it just.
So what you say? You don't like simple things?
It's right there. Yeah.
I think it's the spelling that.
People will call me Tahlar and then they'll see how it's spelled, and all of a sudden they can never remember Tahlar.
They don't know that. Okay, so you want to give some trauma?
Yeah, give us an example. What was the question? I forgot what the question was.
Oh Lord.
What's the process?
Three things we can do to begin the process of forgiveness of ourselves, and others.
Right. So, I'm gonna start with spiritually. So I think sometimes we struggle with forgiveness because we often want the other person to feel what we felt. We want them to hurt as we hurt. And sometimes we either don't want to forgive them or we want to try to seek revenge. But I think the Bible not only tells us to forgive because God forgives us, is because when God said vengeance is mine, it's important to know that I like to believe that God will touch that person or bring that person what they are deserving of in the way that will most affect them. So you holding on to unforgiveness, wanting to see them like, A, you may never see it, or B, like just know that it is in God's hand. And I think it's hard to believe that because the flesh side of us, like, I want to get them back. I want them to hurt. But I'm not gonna say I've enjoyed seeing some people who did me wrong reap what they sow, but it has made me be like, okay, there is a God above.
And I think that, and please hear me when I say this, I think that is fine for the believer. But what about the person that is not connected yet? And you're telling them you just have to. I think that's where it's so important that we walk in what that forgiveness looks like, because that may be the only way to connect it.
I love that. Yes. And that was the second thing I was going to get at. You know, spiritually, I think this is why it's important to forgive. But I think on another note, your unforgiveness gives that person or situation more power over you than you know. And until you have genuine, not surface level, not, I'm going to do it for the next 5 months, genuine forgiveness, you don't know the peace you will receive through releasing that. And so even if you're not a believer, even if you don't believe there's a higher power, or you don't believe in karma or whatever, just the idea, like, do you really want to walk around with something having a stronghold, having power over you? Like, there are people who carry so much unforgiveness, they don't even know how to genuinely smile and laugh. They feel like they're an imposter just for being excited about
or being happy.
And that was me for a long time in my life. I felt like every time I smiled, I'm like, why are you smiling? Because remember what happened? Like, you think about your childhood, think about your this. So I had to release that. And also, lastly, I agree so much with what you're saying, JBL. There are people that I have forgiven, but I've learned how to navigate our relationship. So there are certain people, there's only certain conversations we're going to have. There's only certain interactions we're going to have.
There you go.
There's only certain places we're going to see each. Like, I balance that because that's how I maintain my forgiveness and my peace. It's just kind of orchestrating how we interact with each other.
There you go.
And that, I think that's
very
that's okay with the relationship. Everybody,
you have to learn a healthy way to be around someone that have wronged you.
Exactly.
And that's what you do. And that's good.
That's a great way.
And if you know they're going to keep wronging you, it becomes your responsibility to protect yourself. Every time you open the door, the same person's on the other side and they punch you in the face. You can't be mad at them after a while.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, just a quick story about that too. I had a family member who I invited to my college graduation, and this person was basically playing a cat and mouse game. Oh, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there all day, the entire day, all the way up until the post-grad celebration. Said, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. And then didn't show up until in the middle of the night when we're out celebrating at the bar. Right.
Oh, my.
And this was a very close family member of mine. And I was obviously very hurt by that. And we didn't talk for almost 2 years. And when that person called me back, they had they were dealing with substance issues, and they had gone to jail and then eventually rehab. And but by the time that they called me after those 2 years, I'd already spent those 2 years forgiving them. So when they called me and actually issued that apology, it was easier for me to accept. However,
here's the toxic side.
Here's the toxic side, kind of. That person, even though, and this goes back to the trust thing, even though I forgave them and I was like, okay, we can have what you said, a type of relationship, but I know I'm going to like have certain boundaries with that, right? This person, they get out of jail and ask me for money. And this is not a person who should be asking me for money. And so I declined. I said, I don't have any to give. And to be honest, I haven't really heard from that person as much since. And so, but what I'm not going to do is let that be like, oh, I still forgive that person, because like I said earlier, I realized this person has issues. You know what I'm saying? And there's only so much I can do. What I won't do is let them hurt me again. We're not going to forgive another time.
Right. I'm not going to let you get back in that space again where I'm going to trust that you're going to come through on what you say. So I'm going to control how, that goes back to JB, how I interact, how far I let you in. I love that.
Well, how many times would you want God to forgive you when you just go out and keep doing things that's contrary to his will and his way? You continuously want God.
But I
understand that.
But I'm saying
God has made us in the likeness of himself.
But again, God still holds us accountable for our actions. And I think that what we like to do when we get to talk about forgiveness, we want to give a bride, it's like, okay, I forgive you. And then, okay, come back.
No. I think it's a process.
But hear me out. But I think you still have to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Because when that doesn't mean that you don't forgive them, but what you're doing, you're choosing to say, I forgive you, but I know your character. And your character says that.
So when I say forgiveness, you got to find a way to exist without the hurt. It's what I'm saying.
Carter, let me ask you this.
Okay. Yes.
When God forgives you, do you think he expects you to be perfect from that point forward?
No. No, he know I'm a mess up again.
But I think he expects us to be intentional. So I think this is kind of how I look at it. When we're out here setting boundaries with other people, and like we said, making sure we're protecting ourselves at the end of the day, this is my own personal conviction with God. I feel like if I've done something and I go ask God for forgiveness, it is ownership on me to set boundaries with whatever temptation or whatever I did, to have to ask him for forgiveness. In the same way I'm trying to navigate protecting myself from other people, I need to protect myself from the sin or the whatever else that I'm asking God for forgiveness. So we're not going to be perfect. We live in the flesh.
No.
We should be intentional across the board.
Right. Yeah. And so when it comes to people that hurt you, you really have to pray for them.
Yeah.
And because like you say, God say vengeance is mine. And if we don't pray for that person, God can't change that person or help that person change. See, we won't. Anyway.
He's ready to move on.
Anyway. So, yeah, pray for those that despitefully use your name and try to persecute you. You have to pray for them and allow God to change them in a way, or God may not change. We might unalive them.
How do I protect myself?
And so that's the key, right? That's what we need to get to a place.
How do I protect myself?
Right. But so when
what JB did, I like what he did. It took him time. He separated himself from it for a while he got healed, while he got better, while he got some strength. And then he brought himself back in, but he still, even though he brought himself back in, he still had a protection around himself because he could not allow, and that's what he needed.
Yeah.
That wasn't at our standard. That was at his standard.
And he also had to acknowledge the pain.
Yes.
And he had to work through the process.
Yes, I love it.
And so often, when there's somebody affecting you and they not even around you,
right.
You may need to start working on the process of trying to
acknowledge,
work on yourself. Because, if this person's affecting me and he's 300 4,000 miles away from me and hadn't talked to this person, and I don't God know when. Person might be dead already. That unalive, should I say? Yes. And there's we got to work on the process of gaining peace. On the Love and Victory show with you on your Love and Victory show, I always talk about having peace of mind. I always use scriptures about peace and trying to gain peace within yourself, because forgiveness literally come down to just that.
For you,
having peace within your own self, because unforgiveness clogs that, and it enables it disable you to even have an embracive, open, loving personality, let alone you know what I'm saying?
That is so good.
It requires accountability. It requires accountability and the power you allow it for yourself. And I think, just lastly, real quickly, sometimes we struggle with unforgiveness because we haven't taken accountability for the role we played in that situation. And this is like, there's some people where I haven't talked to them, but there's a level to, there's something I did in that situation too that makes me a little bit timid to go talk. So we're playing the waiting game.
Right.
So like, we're not always not at fault.
Right.
So we have to take accountability either for our unforgiveness, for what people unintentionally did for us, but there's a role we haven't forgiven ourselves for, which keeps us out of forgiving the situation.
100%.
I was going to say, I mean, it's easier to hold on to that anger, but it takes a bigger toll on you later on.
It does.
In the same way, like if someone, isn't being healthy and they get to 500 pounds, it's harder to lose the weight after the fact, right?
Yes, right.
Whereas it would have been harder to like work out consistently all that time. You know what I'm saying? I'm not wording it properly.
No,
it's easier to wait till it gets bad and just let it eat you up inside and not do anything about it.
It's going to take more work.
It's going to take more work later on. Whereas if you take the time to do it in the moment, then it's going to be less work for you later on. And less of a toll.
Or just taking time, because I really love that JB acknowledged that what he went through as a child, that was bad. That was his mother. It really did. As a child, that was some serious, oh my God.
If he can work through that process, anybody can go through anything.
Let me tell you, that's a walking man of forgiveness right there. So today I have to say, you are a true example, of what forgiveness is, because the person, your maternal, your mother, if you're able to get to your own forgiveness of what your mother
peace
did,
with that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
And so, forgiveness is a huge subject. And, I hope to have next time we have a show on forgiveness, we have a theologian one, and well, I guess that's what you do. You work
trauma therapy.
I'm not trauma.
No, she's not trauma. She's not trauma, but
JB fits all the criteria.
I had a lot of trauma therapy.
He had a lot of trauma therapy.
Right.
But he's traumatizing. Yes. But I do think that it's so important, because we all have something as a child growing up, or even as an adult, that we may have experienced, that you struggle with that thing of moving on, forgiveness. And so this has been a great show for me.
So in closing, forgiving others, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace.
Ooh,
that's right.
Wow.
And so, any closing words, any closing remarks from anyone on the panel?
Honey, let me tell you, can you read that one more time? Baby, that's it right there. Can you read that one more time?
There you go.
He said, forgive others, not because they deserve it. Forgiveness, but because they forgive. I don't know.
You worse than me.
No, I'm not.
You know what? Not because they deserve it, because you deserve peace.
Yes.
Forgive others, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace.
I think you said something earlier when I stepped out of the room, but that reminds me of the Lord's Prayer. Forgive those who trespass against us.
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Yeah. You're on the right path.
You know.
I do know it, but I think that's a good way to kind of just sum this all up, you know?
And I think we're human. Like, I have a lot of extended trauma from childhood, not to your extent, but there's a lot of things I carried into my adulthood. But I still have an amazing relationship in its own right with my parents. And that's because the older I got, the wiser I got, the more I realized what they didn't know and how they were hurt and how that was just inflicted on me because of their unknown. It's put a thing on me like, I can forgive you. You know, I made a joke with my mom the other day because I'm 28. By 28, my mom had me and my sister, and I was like, "You was a whole mother of two by my age. I can't even get my kitty together." But it made me have so much more grace,
empathy, and stuff.
I was growing up. Like, how would you have known?
Right.
And so I think it's important to know that sometimes that's why it's important to forgive, because people don't know or you didn't know.
You have to understand sometimes to forgive. It's hard to forgive blindly when you don't fully understand this. That's why people want closure all the time.
It goes back to what I said. If y'all remember here, this is that road. That road is here. And we all are trying to get there. And it wasn't until you got to a place, because you was here with your parents, and then you got here. Now it's starting to make sense, you know.
And now I thank them for certain aspects.
And so we have to forgive our elders, because this is all they knew to do.
Right.
And when they was coming up, and they raised you in the limited facts and things that they had upon them.
But you're only going to get there when you get there.
Right.
Understand what they...
Well, it started by just acknowledging that, you know, they didn't have the best of tools to raise. I mean, no mother would intentionally just
knowingly
without something going on, you know, medically, mentally, put a child in the trash can. You know,
some stuff.
You know, no parent would just have sex with their own child without something
being
happened to them in their past. So, I got another segment here that says, forgive your enemies. Nothing annoyed them so much. Forgiving them is a final form of love. I forgive myself and set myself free.
Oh, until next time.
And so next week, we're going to talk about unforgiveness and what it can do to you as a human being.
Wow.
So be sure to tune in. Thank y'all for listening to Tasteful and Toxic with your main man, or what they call me, Mr. C, Mr. Carter, Brother Carter, or LC, however you refer to
call you
me.
Big Daddy.
And if you're my wife, you call me Big Daddy.
But anyway, put on there, if you his wife.
There you go.
Well, thank y'all. The show, be sure and tune in every Wednesday at 8 a.m. God bless you. We love you, and we'll talk to you next week.
All righty then. We're out of here.